Good morning, everybody. It's a Wandering Author here. It's everyone's favorite revolutionary, a Wandering Author here, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. And today, we are returning to the decline of Rome. We're going to wrap up the rest of Caligula's time in office and then take a look at the replacement for him, Claudius, his uncle. So, remember last time we got through Caligula's early reign, which was filled with terror, and he killed a whole bunch of elite people. So, let's begin. It finally occurred to the Mad King Caligula that empty gestures were insufficient for loyalty, especially of the Roman upper crust. He realized past leaders had proven themselves through actual achievements. So Caligula's plan was to utilize his newly reformed army in the north. They had to pacify Germany, stabilize the Rhine, and then complete the conquest of Britannia. This should have been enough to restore public confidence in the disfavored son. History shows otherwise. From the reports handed down to us through time, Caligula proved to be both a coward and disgraced himself at the outset. When enemies approached in Germany, he chose to be passed over the heads of his legions, despite his successful generals. At the Channel, near Britain, the emperor either lost heart or command as his soldiers mutinied on their faithless leader. Instead of crossing to Britannia, they collected seashells and mailed them to Rome as a token of a victory over Neptune. Then plots formed in the winter of AD 40 to put an end to his rule because of a minority faction in the Senate who feared damage to the empire. A larger faction probably knew about this plot, yet they kept their silence. However, the military played the decisive role, and the imperial bodyguard lost their allegiance to the boy emperor. Being an arrogant bully and a powerful coward had not inspired the loyalty of his top men, the praetorian prefects and tribunes. Leaders from the court also joined in on the plot. Even his friends and families conspired against him at the end. Apparently, Caligula's keen sense of perception alerted him to the danger. So instead of re-entering Rome after his campaign, he issued a bizarre series of proclamations. These included threats of retribution, a promise to be emperor of the people and the equestrians, and an announcement that he had become a god. Minor purges were initiated in AD 40, but a conspiracy's core remained intact, and only marginal figures fell victim. It was January of AD 41 when Caligula discovered the limits of his godhood, and 2 tribunes hacked him to death with the help of their guard beneath the palace. The initial aftermath was pandemonium. Death squads went after Caligula's wife and his daughter, and his bodyguard was also charged with assassination of several senators. City officials prevented a general massacre and regained control of the province with great difficulty. Then an emergency session of the Senate was called by the distraught consuls on the Capitoline Hill, and they relocated the city's treasury there. Urban cohorts mobilized to create a defensive perimeter around the proceedings. During the debate, some voices urged a return to libertas, or the collective rule of the senatorial class, as the terrors of Tiberius and Caligula that governed the previous years have violated the decorum of polite government. 10 years of tyranny had unveiled the true face of empire, and the illusion of the republic stood no more. Fear made libertas attractive, and that is the Latin word for liberty, but in the Roman sense, this was letting the Senate rule them, which was, as we know today, a bunch of very, very wealthy elite who didn't have much in common with the commoners. Nevertheless, factional politics now dominated the Roman system, so many aligned behind new imperial candidates. As the meeting progressed, no consensus could be found, and a rival court outside the Senate formed on the city's other side. Praetorians had located Claudius, the uncle of Caligula, during the tumult, and took him to the barracks. They began to debate the future of Rome with him in their custody. Guardsmen led the debate, not common soldiers, but the ones who had the easiest, most generous service conditions, the Praetorian Guard, who were patrons of the emperor, and Claudius was sole survivor of the imperial house. Now remember, these people had easy assignments because the emperor gave it to them. Therefore, they proclaimed him the new princeps by the assembly's end. Throughout the evening, a group of wealthy elite debated who should form a government on one side of the city, while power flowed from the Senate to the new court on the other side. The guards protecting the senators disbanded as it grew clear who would be the realm's newest ruler. The sun dawned on a downtrodden Senate, and their power dissolved completely. They went to concede, and Claudius was carried in triumph to the palace. Following the death of Caesar in 44 BC, it took over 8 years to destroy Libertas, yet it was accomplished in less than 24 hours this time. Now next, we get to watch events unfold as soldiers become increasingly aware of the influence they have over power on world events as they prop up figurehead rulers. The people rejected oligarchy and the rule of a wealthy elite in place of a man who would easily bend to their will. So, Claudius is reported to have had cerebral palsy, so it was easy for his opponents to paint him as a stammering fool prior to his ascension. To gain power, he used the army's presence to intimidate the Senate, and in the process became a figurehead of them. In the following year, dissidents within the elite and military hatched a plot to depose him, yet their legions refused to march. Suspects were gathered for a show trial, and their bodies were tossed in the river Tiber. Over the next 13 years, 35 senators and 321 equestrians would be executed, all told. Freedmen and provincials would fill the courts, as he viewed them as trustworthy. For this reason, his rivals painted him as mediocre and as a tyrant who presided over revolutionaries. Claudius is seen today as the last of the populares and conqueror of Britain. He bought popularity with the masses, using generous donatives. His pay package included up to 5,000 denarii, which is a day's pay. So you're talking about almost 20 years worth of salary. It'd be like giving $1 million to a man or something like that today, per head, while his predecessor, Caligula, had only given them 500. And then an entire year's tax revenue were given to the army, and the people benefited also, likewise, from a Roman stimulus program that included cash handouts, a grain dole, and public works. All in all, this drained the public treasury, and war booty could not be found to make up the deficit, as the Pax Romana had made war kind of obsolete. However, war was on the menu for the advisors of Claudius, and there was only one obvious target that remained: Britain. They saw it as a way to increase revenue, legitimize the emperor, and cow anyone resisting the regime. The Caligula's kingdom had initiated an expansion, giving the empire plenty of reason to launch an invasion. And Caligula's lieutenants had already done the legwork, and since the island was mysterious to the public, it could even be presented as one of the empire's grandest achievements. Plus, it was wealthy enough to cover all this expenditure, at least for a time. And that concludes our lesson today. So, my question remains the same as always. What are you guys doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your local community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part. And you can count on me to do mine daily. Until next time, God bless.